To survive, the girl stopped hiding her true power. Just because of her bright pink hair, she was born carrying her family's most forbidden curse. That was, until a blazing fire destroyed her 10th birthday, and the entire Lacreni family. Watching her brother collapse, covered in blood, and staring at the killer about to take her life, Rulsha only wanted to know the truth behind it all. 10 years ago at the Lacreni estate, Rulsha's birth came at the cost of her mother's life. As a ducal family renowned across the continent, the Lacrenis were world famous for their fiercely powerful magical bloodline. Even their distant relatives were born with incredible magic, but as the youngest child of the family, Rulsha was a complete and utter exception, and because of that, she was stripped of her right to live in the main estate. Treated as an outcast, she lived completely alone outside the family's high walls. Throughout her bleak childhood, she tried with all her might, just to earn a tiny scrap of love from her family. She poured her heart into preparing a birthday gift, but all she got in return was her grandfather locking her away. It was her punishment for sneaking into the main castle, simply because, as a member of the Lacreni bloodline, failing to awaken her magic made her a symbol of a curse. Her simple wish to celebrate her birthday with her family completely dissolved into tears. Then, a sudden, raging fire jolted her awake from her despair. Rulsha stumbled out of her room, only to realize with a shock that everyone had left her behind. She was all alone in the freezing annex. But then, a warm hand grabbed her tightly. "Why haven't you escaped yet?" Her brother Ricardo's frantic voice rang in her ears. Realizing the maids had abandoned his little sister, Ricardo's eyes turned icy cold. The Imperial Army had already invaded their territory. To buy time for the family to escape, their grandfather was leading a desperate last stand. With no time to explain, Ricardo dragged his sister by the hand and sprinted outside. But a dark figure blocked their path. It was the Duke's personal knight, Oberon. Seeing him, Ricardo breathed a massive sigh of relief. He quickly ordered Oberon to get his sister to safety. As the rightful heir to the family, he had to go back and help their grandfather fight off the Imperial Army. "Don't worry about me," the boy squeezed Rulsha's hand, promising to find her the second this was all over. For the very first time, the little girl truly felt the warmth of family. But that warmth she had dreamed of lasted barely a few seconds. A sharp blade pierced right through flesh and bone, shattering Rulsha's fragile dream. The guardian knight, Oberon, yanked his bloodied sword back, sending hot blood spraying into the air. With his dying breath, Ricardo screamed at his sister to run. But the sudden shock of it all left Rulsha completely paralyzed in terror. Was the cause of all this tragedy really just because she had no magic? Staring at her burning home, and her brother's lifeless body, Oberon's furious accusations kept echoing in her ears. "The Lacreni family was doomed the day you were born. Your father and grandfather sacrificed everything just to buy you 10 years of peace." As the heavy blade swung down at her, the girl violently jolted awake. She fell out of bed, her heart pounding with sheer terror. Feeling how small her body was, it seemed she had traveled back in time. She had traveled back to when she was just 4 years old. The maid who hurried in had simply meant to wake the little lady up, but found Lursa sitting on the floor, staring blankly into space. Her breakfast for today was a dry piece of peanut bread. No one knew that she was allergic to peanuts, so Lursa had to pick the peanuts out, one by one. Seeing the exact same scene play out from her past life made Lursa absolutely certain she had actually gone back in time. In this life, she only wanted to uncover the truth behind everything she had suffered. But her newfound determination hit a wall the very next second. It seemed there was absolutely nothing she could do right now. But after thinking for just a moment, a brilliant plan popped into her head. She had to leave the castle to stop all those disasters from happening. Maybe, if she just left, Oberon wouldn't betray the family. At that thought, Lursa frantically searched her room for anything valuable. In no time, she had everything packed up. With her little bag on her back, she decided to set off right away, making the village just outside the forest her destination. Sadly, her worn-out bag spilled her things all over the ground as she walked. Little did she know, the bracelet she dropped was snatched up by someone. A short while later, night fell, blanketing the entire forest in a creepy, ominous vibe. Tiny Lursa was nearing her absolute physical limit. She could only comfort herself as she forced her little legs forward. "I can't go through my past life all over again," the young girl cheered herself on in her heart. "I can do this on my own." she thought. Little did she know, a massive monster was already right behind her. The beast's foul, reeking drool practically screamed how hungry it was. Lursa dodged completely on instinct, but with just a casual swipe from the monster, the ground was sliced open as easily as tofu. Meanwhile, on the other side, Ricardo arrived at his little sister's mansion. It was so empty inside, it was unbelievable. Completely ignoring the terrified maids, he went straight to searching for Lursa, but he soon found out she had been missing since that morning. Ricardo couldn't believe it. How dare these maids neglect her so blatantly? His terrifying, murderous glare made the maids tremble uncontrollably. But right at that moment, a guard reported that he had found Lursa's trail. Her bracelet was found right at the edge of the monster forest. Hearing this, Ricardo instantly panicked. Any random beast in there would easily kill her. Without a second thought, Ricardo bolted out the door. Back to Lursa. Her survival instincts screamed at her to never, ever stop running. But even covered in bruises, her frail little body stood zero chance of outrunning a magical beast. Just then, a familiar figure flashed before her eyes. Ricardo's blade slashed right across the monster's body. His sheer panic instantly morphed into rage, but he had no idea that absolutely no one had ever warned Lursa about the dangers lurking in this forest. And to make matters worse, the beast he just knocked back was already getting right back on its feet. Ricardo grabbed his little sister and shoved her behind him. "Run, Lursa." Hearing those familiar words, right as the monster's brutal claws came slashing down, the little girl's eyes went wide with terror. That familiar back completely overlapped with the horrific memory of Ricardo falling dead in her past life. No. Throwing her arms open on pure instinct, she tackled Ricardo straight to the ground. Suddenly, the air was filled with a dense swarm of magical floating bubbles. These intensely powerful bubbles took down the massive beast with just the lightest touch, sending it crashing to the ground. Ricardo stared at the scene in absolute shock. This was Lursa's awakened power. Even Lursa couldn't believe what she had just done. But the sheer, lingering terror made her throw herself back into Ricardo's arms, completely ignoring the messy snot bubble she wiped all over his clothes. She was so relieved that her brother was safe and sound. Ricardo gently wiped away his little sister's tears. With his immense power, of course he wouldn't die so easily. But in the very next moment, Lursa suddenly collapsed backward. It seemed her frail little body simply couldn't handle the intense surge of magic. And just like that, she passed out completely. Looking at the figure suddenly stepping closer, Ricardo remained suspicious, even though the man claimed he was just passing by. Ricardo didn't buy it for a second. Ever since that bracelet was found, Lursa had been under this man's constant watch. Yet, he merely left the bracelet right out in the open. He just let the young lady wander off into the dangerous forest. And all because he was her father's retainer. Ever since Fenal was demoted by the royal family, this retainer named Roland had been strictly forbidden from interfering in any family affairs. But fortunately, now that Lursa's powers had finally awakened, he was sure that ban would be lifted very soon. Ricardo shook his head to clear his thoughts. He decided it was best to go deal with those insolent maids first. Roland was also preparing to escort the young lady back home. It was finally time to settle some scores. When Lursa slowly blinked her eyes open, she was greeted by an entirely unfamiliar room. Seeing the young lady wake up, a guard named Sona gently introduced herself. She explained that from today onward, she would serve as her personal knight. Hearing this, Lursa couldn't help but feel that the knight standing before her was incredibly gentle. Sona handed Lursa a glass of water, and softly explained that she had been unconscious for 2 whole days. Being a distant relative of the Lacreni family, Sona understood her symptoms perfectly. It was completely normal to experience a shock like this when one's magic first awakened. And all thanks to Lursa's awakening, Roland was fully reinstated to his former position yesterday. Her father, Fenal, was also on his way back from the borderlands. Hearing those words, Lursa completely froze. So, the real reason her father hadn't come to see her was because he had been stationed out at the borders all this time. And now, she could finally see her daddy, just like all the other children. Seeing the little girl zone out in disbelief, Sona let out a heartfelt sigh of relief for her. But before anyone could say another word, the little lady's stomach let out a loud, hungry rumble. Thank goodness Sona had already prepared a meal in advance. Right after she finished eating, she would have to get ready to meet the head of the family. At the mere thought of her grandfather, Lirza couldn't help but tense up. Sona gently patted the girl's back, reassuring her that there was nothing to worry about. She promised that from now on, everything was going to be perfectly fine. Just then, the maids delivering her food arrived at the door. As the door swung open, it was clear that those abusive maids from before had already been dealt with. The incredibly lavish spread of food completely blew the little girl's mind. And when she found out there would even be pudding for dessert, Lirza's face lit up with eager anticipation for the very first time. It was her absolute favorite sweet treat. In the past, she used to be absolutely terrified of the maids in the side pavilion. But now, their sudden kindness felt almost like a dream to her. She wanted to stay this happy forever and ever. If only she wasn't that cursed child destined to ruin the entire family. A little while later, after the maids had beautifully dressed and styled her, Lirza stepped out looking like a precious little angel. The maids practically melted at how adorable she looked. Seeing this, Sona quickly cleared her throat, reminding the maids to mind their manners. Even if the young lady was perfectly fine with it, they couldn't just forget the rules. She then gently reminded Lirza of the curtsy they had just practiced together. Pinch the edges of your dress, then step like this, and bow like that. But right at that moment, the door creaked open. Lirza shyly peeked her head out from behind Sona, and the familiar figure standing there made her eyes go wide with shock. It was Oberon, the personal retainer of Duke Lacreni. Because of one single, terrifying oracle. Just because of that cursed prophecy, this little girl was condemned as an omen of disaster. Her life was supposed to be ended right then and there. But Fenol, desperate to save his beloved daughter, chose to be exiled to the harsh borderlands forever. Just a short while ago, Lirza had followed quietly behind Oberon, because in all of her past memories, Oberon was the family's most loyal servant, so what exactly drove him to betray them? Just as she was thinking about this, Oberon suddenly turned to look right at Lirza. "Is there something you want to say to me?" Feeling completely seen through, Lirza visibly panicked. After a moment, she managed to compose herself. "Does the Lacreni family mean a lot to you?" Oberon's answer was entirely unexpected. He had long considered this place his true home. Hearing this, Lirza finally gathered her courage. Her magic had already awakened, and absolutely nothing that Oberon was worried about was going to happen. Saying this, without even waiting for his response, she eagerly rushed off to see her grandfather. A moment later, Lirza was escorted into the study. This was actually her very first time formally meeting the head of the family like this. She thought back to the etiquette Sona had taught her, but suddenly, her foot slipped. She ended up face-planting right onto the floor. Thankfully, Duke Lacreni didn't scold her for it. He only wanted to see the magic Lirza had awakened. The very next moment, Lirza tried her hardest to remember how it felt the first time she used her magic. But the magic bubbles didn't appear like she had hoped. For a moment, the entire study went dead silent. The Duke couldn't hide the disappointment in his eyes. Maybe he shouldn't have gotten his hopes up at all. But the stubborn Lirza had absolutely no intention of just backing down and leaving. If she couldn't even earn her family's approval, then what was the point of her reincarnation in the first place? She slipped right out of Oberon's grasp, desperately hoping for just one more chance. And the very next moment, magic-infused bubbles floated up, filling the entire room. Even the usually cold and strict Duke Lacreni was left completely dumbfounded. As the bubbles popped upon contact, any magic they touched vanished completely. Such an incredibly powerful magic neutralization ability made the Duke almost unable to believe that this was actually his own granddaughter's power. It's just that, having only recently awakened, she still couldn't control it very well. "I will find a proper teacher for you." But Lirza didn't take a single word of that in. Hey, as long as he wasn't scolding her, that was a huge win in her book. Then, she scurried out of there as fast as her little legs could carry her. It turned out that, a long time ago, the temple had issued a divine oracle. An unawakened silver bloodline will plunge the empire into eternal darkness. Because of this, the Lacreni family had suffered under the empire's strict surveillance for ages. Right up until Lirza was born. A child completely devoid of magic proved the prophecy true. But the Duke simply couldn't bear to hand such a young child over to them. And so, her father, Fenor, took her place, spending years guarding the desolate borders. All just to buy his daughter a tiny bit more time. Nowadays, the Lacreni family was nowhere near as powerful as they used to be. The royal family and the branch families were all glaring like hungry wolves. Yet, Lursa had finally awakened her magic at a time like this. And her power was far greater than anyone had ever imagined. Meanwhile, a massive eagle swooped across the vast, snow-white border, landing steadily onto a man's heavily armored arm. The man skillfully untied the letter. "It's been a long time, my dearest Lursa." She had finally proven herself. Lursa had finally shown what she was truly capable of, but her genuine, heartfelt emotions had completely shattered the young boy's heart. Not too long ago, Roland, serving as Fenner's lieutenant, had temporarily taken on the role of the little lady's private tutor. He specifically brought along a beginner's guide to magic. His original plan was to teach Lursa how to read first, but to his complete surprise, the girl already knew how, even though she had been living in a remote annex and had never even had a teacher. Lursa had learned everything little by little, relying entirely on the words in her picture books. Every single member of the Lecleni family eventually awakened a special ability. Usually, the direct descendants awakened theirs the moment they were born. The branch families, on the other hand, mostly awakened between the ages of 4 and 7. But in the entire history of the family, there had never been a single person who hadn't awakened at all. Thinking about all this, Lursa couldn't help but feel that, not awakening until she was 10 years old in her past life, the whole situation was just incredibly bizarre. Just from their very first class together, Roland noticed Lursa's incredible talent. She had an understanding of magic far beyond normal people. Such a shame she never got any proper training before. Wait, he remembered there weren't any children's books in the side palace. Right? A little while later, Lursa had already made her way to the library. She was desperate to find even the smallest clue about her family's downfall. But an obnoxious voice suddenly cut right through the silence. "Hey, look, it's the cursed freak." They were kids from the branch family. Even though it was their very first time meeting her, they immediately started ruthlessly bullying Lursa. She wanted to tell them to just shut up. After all, she was a true Lecleni now. But that green-haired Brad didn't care at all. He even used his magic to completely freeze her legs. But just then, a gross cockroach crawled right up his arm. The two of them instantly started jumping around like they were tap dancing. "Don't you idiots know you're supposed to be quiet in the library?" That striking silver-white hair was absolute proof of his noble bloodline. It was Fenal's third son, Riskarl. With a single, sharp snap of his fingers, all the magic in the library instantly vanished. Terrified, the green-haired bullies scrambled and stumbled away as fast as they could. Looking up at her third brother, Lursa froze for a long moment before timidly whispering her thanks. But in return, all she got was a freezing cold glare. "You should have just stayed locked up in the side palace. Stop coming out here to embarrass us." As he brushed coldly past her, Lursa suddenly remembered that in her past life, Riskarl had hated her exactly like this. A short while later, Riskarl was curled up on the floor by his bed, clearly fighting to force his heavy breathing to calm down. Ricardo gently pushed the door open and walked in. "Why can't you just swallow your pride and go congratulate her? I mean, wasn't this the exact day you've been waiting for all along?" Back in a castle bathed in gentle starlight, there was once a very young boy. And one day, he heard that a brand new star was going to fall from the sky. When he found out it would take exactly 100 days for that beautiful star to finally reach his side, well, he spent every single day snuggled up tightly against his mother, softly reading fairy tales to the little star growing inside her tummy. And his mother would just sit there, watching him quietly with the most tender, loving smile. Desperate to be the perfect big brother, the little boy read to her day after day, waiting so patiently for his little star to descend. But when that day finally came, his sweet mother returned to the sky instead. The beautiful, starlit castle was shattered forever, leaving the little boy all alone, staring emptily out the window for hours. Ever since that tragic day, he never looked up at the stars again. So, even though Lursa had awakened her powers exactly like he had hoped, he completely refused to say a single word of congratulations to her. All the agonizing pain their family suffered because of her was permanently burned into Riskarl's broken heart. In his eyes, Lursa should never have been born into this world in the first place. Thud. A book suddenly hit the floor. That was when Lursa finally realized the real reason they all looked at her like she was a living curse. She had only followed him because he looked so hurt, and she was frantically trying to apologize to him. She never expected to overhear something so devastating. But now that she knew the tragic truth, she just gave a sad little smile. genuinely feeling that her brother's hatred was completely justified. She really didn't deserve to call herself a proper Lacreni, but hearing her say that, Riscarl completely froze. "You're supposed to be crying. You should be screaming at me," he choked out. Why are you just calmly accepting everything?" Even though Riscarl knew perfectly well deep down, absolutely none of this was Lursa's fault. And that was exactly the problem. He hated his innocent little sister who had done absolutely nothing wrong. But he hated himself a million times more for taking it all out on her. Riscarl's emotions finally, completely shattered. Looking at his tears, Lursa suddenly understood everything. Back then, he was just a little boy, even younger than she was right now. So of course he needed someone to blame. It was completely understandable. Without another word, Lursa threw her arms around Riscarl in a massive, warm hug. She knew all too well how suffocating that terrible loneliness tasted. So from now on, she was never going to let him feel it again. Riscarl had been living all alone. Now that she had returned to the main estate, she hoped they could live like real brother and sister. But when Riscarl heard this, he called her a liar. Why would she ever want a brother like him? Seeing him break down into tears again, Rielsa made up her mind to change their family's tragic fate. A little while later, she found out that the picture books in the annex were actually left by Riscarl. Even though he acted like he didn't care, those pages filled with a child's crooked handwriting made Rielsa instantly understand her brother's true feelings. It was a deep, unspoken bond of family. Just then, Sona rushed over. She breathed a sigh of relief seeing that Rielsa was safe. But unexpectedly, right after Riscarl taught those branch family kids a lesson in the library, they had the nerve to call for a family tribunal. All the branch relatives completely agreed, demanding that Rielsa be punished. That is, until Fenner showed up. When Fenner finally appeared, Rielsa truly understood the deep love her father had hidden in his heart. Not too long ago, at the family council, that green-haired old man completely ignored everyone's warnings. He was dead set on holding a tribunal to punish Rielsa. He even used the branch family's profits as a threat, forcing them to go along with his plan. Meanwhile, as the head of the house, Duke Lacreni could only try his best to ensure a fair trial. The head of the family has to remain completely neutral. If he were to break that rule, the branch families would completely split from the household. And without Fenner around, Duke Lacreni was nothing but a toothless tiger in that green-haired guy's eyes. He had to get rid of Rielsa before Fenner came back. The disciplinary tribunal began shortly after. The green-haired father and son, along with Rielsa, took their seats. Even though everyone else was worried sick, they could only wait outside. Since the tribunal only allowed the accused and their guardians inside, they intentionally summoned Rielsa alone to isolate her. Even though Riscarl was the one who actually threw the punches, sadly, Lord Fenner wasn't there. So Rielsa chose to take the blame all by herself. She knew she hadn't done anything wrong, and promised she'd come back safe and sound. But honestly, she was just saying that to comfort them. She was just very careful to hide her fear. Right then, the green-haired man made his accusation. He claimed that Rielsa had awakened her magic and attacked him. Such a baseless lie made the girl want to shout back immediately. But the words stopped right at her lips. If she told the truth, then Riscarl would take all the blame. Rielsa's hesitation gave the green-haired old man an opening to attack again. He claimed her silence was an insult to all the branch families. He wanted to lock Rielsa back up in the annex. But right at that moment, the tribunal doors were kicked wide open. The Duke's son, Fenner, had finally arrived. Rielsa stared blankly at the doorway, as Fenner marched straight toward the green-haired father and son. Bullying a child, and you dare call this a fair trial? The green-haired man's cheek started twitching uncontrollably. It turned out, letting Rielsa grow up in the annex was actually his way of protecting her all along. These two were accusing his daughter of hurting someone, yet they didn't even know what kind of magic she had awakened. Just then, Roland brought in the records, detailing the young Mrs. 4 years living in the annex. It revealed that during her time there, even her basic meals were constantly cut off. And the one managing that budget was none other than the green-haired Marquis Krent. Fenner was completely done listening to his pathetic excuses, deliberately neglecting a descendant of the Lacreni family, and even plotting to use a tribunal for your own personal punishment. This blatant abuse of power absolutely enraged the Duke. Marquis Krent will be permanently expelled from the council. A few moments later, Sona finally rushed over to Rielsa. Seeing that her young miss was completely fine, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness Lord Fenner had returned just in time. Hearing his daughter stutter out the word, "Father," the blood that had grown cold from Fenner's years at the border. The excitement is bubbling over right now. It's been way too long, my sweet Lursa. It turns out, little Lursa's birth was anticipated with so much love and hope from everyone. Fennel, who had been stationed far out at the border ever since she was born, really just wanted to see how much his little girl had grown. But the very next second, Lursa dashed right behind Sona to hide. No matter how gently Fennel called out to her, she just kept her little face buried in Sona's skirt. She had dreamed about her daddy coming home countless times, but now that he was actually here, the poor girl was completely overwhelmed. Seeing this, Sona could tell that the father and daughter just needed a little more time to bond. So, she gently suggested that Lursa make a handmade gift for him. She promised her that as long as she made it, her dad would absolutely love it, no matter what it was. Meanwhile, after finding out exactly how Lursa had been living for the past 4 years, Duke Lacreni was completely consumed with guilt. He had been so focused on protecting the family's legacy that he had left his own granddaughter in such terrible conditions. He knew he should have been a much better grandfather to her. And with the crown prince's birthday right around the corner, the royal family was already growing deeply paranoid about the Lacreni family's power. Yet, Fennel chose this exact moment to step back into imperial politics. Some of their distant relatives had already secretly allied with the royals. Before those traitors could make their move, Fennel wanted to make absolutely sure everyone remembered the true, terrifying strength of the Lacreni family. He was determined to make sure Lursa grew up completely safe from any danger. But man, he really didn't expect that being away for 4 years would lead to such a massive mountain of paperwork. Still, the absolute most important thing right now was to finally bond with his daughter. Right on cue, Roland handed him a little guidebook. He wanted to make sure Fennel, who only knew how to raise rowdy boys, wouldn't be too rough with the delicate little lady. It was titled, How to Gently Comfort a Child. It had tips like saying, "You did amazing, my little princess," while making a cute finger heart, and making sure her medicine was strawberry flavored. Fennel felt like he was literally turning to stone reading it. But just then, Lursa walked right up to him, completely ignoring her dad's awkward, stammering words. She gently grabbed his hand. She wanted to show him something special. A few moments later, the two of them stepped onto the family's gorgeous luxury yacht. The silence was pretty awkward at first. Fennel's brain was frantically trying to remember all the parenting advice from Roland's book. But before he could even think of what to say, he looked down and saw Lursa offering him a handmade bracelet. She had made this bracelet with her own 2 hands. This tough man, who had been stationed at the border since she was born, suddenly felt the 4 long years of distance completely melt away the moment his little girl slipped the bracelet onto his wrist. It was like that gap never existed. With a warm smile, he told her that her oldest brother, Legion, was also heading home soon. And that once summer finally arrived, the entire family would be together to throw her the most amazing birthday party. But the moment she heard that, the little girl just froze. Because to her, her birthday was the exact same day her mother had passed away. And so, she truly believed her birthday was a dark, shameful day that didn't deserve to be celebrated. Ever since she was tiny, everyone around her had cruelly blamed her for taking her mother's life. No presents, no cake, no happy birthday wishes. She had learned long ago to never even hope for one. Seeing her pain, Fennel pulled his daughter into a tight, loving embrace. Her birth was a beautiful blessing, not some horrible curse. The whole family had prayed for her safe arrival. Fennel absolutely refused to let his precious girl think so poorly of herself. She would forever be the most precious gift their family ever received. Meanwhile, desperate to win their little sister's affection, her 2 older brothers were literally ready to swim 8,000 meters for her. Not long after Fennel had finally poured his heart out to his daughter, little did the father and daughter know, they were secretly being watched. Ricardo happened to walk by and looked at his brother in total confusion. Riscarl frantically shushed him. The 2 boys stared in awe at the sweet scene unfolding, wondering when their dad and little sister had gotten so close. Seeing them like that, Riscarl was literally twitching with jealousy. He wanted to pat his little sister's head too. Even the usually mature Ricardo couldn't help but sigh with envy. Looking at his little brother, he just felt second-hand embarrassment, until he spotted the bracelet on their father's wrist. It was a gift from their little sister, Lursa. But the very next second, Riskel felt something suddenly land on his head. Before Ricardo could even react, a spectacular splash into the water immediately caught the father and daughter's attention. Ricardo yanked his little brother up. "If I said we were just passing by, would you guys believe me?" But Riskel didn't care, whining at the top of his lungs that he wanted a handmade bracelet from his sister too. Seeing his brother completely lose his cool, damn it, Ricardo was so frustrated he could explode. It wasn't until their sweet sister promised to make two of them that the brothers finally looked satisfied. Hearing all this chatter, the Duke immediately chimed in, saying he wanted to join everyone. He wanted to enjoy this rare family time. This was exactly the warm, loving family the girl had desperately begged for in her past life. Now, she just wanted to greedily soak up every second of it. In the blink of an eye, Duke Lacrini stared at the chaotic garden, even entertaining the thought of firing the gardener on the spot. But a moment later, he caught sight of his son, Fenner. The usually dignified and serious Fenner was actually wearing a little woven bracelet. The Duke instantly wanted to give him a piece of his mind. But then, he spotted the little head peeking out from behind his son. Finding out it was a precious gift from his granddaughter, the Duke felt like he'd just stumbled into the biggest crisis of his life. Meanwhile, deep inside the imperial palace, the woman threw a dismissive, icy glance at the man walking in. Rishan Lacrini, Fenner's eldest son, when he heard the news that his little sister Lursa's powers had awakened. Rishan's pupils shrank in sudden shock, while the woman who broke the news just watched him with a mocking smirk. After a long, heavy silence, Rishan finally spoke up. He coldly swore he wouldn't let his sister ruin their grand plans. Hearing this, the woman seductively hooked her finger under his chin. "The day of our sweet reunion is approaching fast. Don't you ever forget the real reason the Lacrini family is even still alive." Back home, Lursa's genuine affection was piercing straight through 50 years of the Duke's hardened memories. Watching Fenner absolutely dote on his daughter, the Duke felt that overwhelming sense of panic hitting him all over again. But seeing Lursa's handmade bracelet, it sparked a faded warmth from his own youth. He awkwardly squatted down. Could you maybe make one for your grandpa, too?" Lursa was completely taken aback. In her memories, her grandpa was always so strict and unsmiling. Yet here he was, happily letting her place a flower crown on his head. This was the very first time she and her grandpa had shared such a sweet, peaceful moment. A little while later, upon hearing that her father would be leaving for the capital in 3 days, Lursa's ears perked right up. The capital, the absolute center of all the power and chaos. She could definitely find clues there to keep her family safe. At that thought, Lursa eagerly begged to go with her dad, but before Fenner could even say a word, the Duke flatly shut her down. Lursa tried to push back and fight for it just a bit more. But that seemed to completely trigger the Duke. His harsh, extreme outburst left poor Lursa frozen and terrified for a moment. Shortly after, realizing he'd messed up, the Duke hastily choked out an apology. After sending Fenner and Lursa out, the Duke stood alone in his study, lost in heavy thoughts. Oberon quietly murmured, asking if he had been way too harsh on little Miss Lursa. The Duke knew his years of cruel neglect could never be erased. But this time, he still couldn't bring himself to bend the rules for her. The Duke's hand trembled faintly as he gripped an old photograph, back when the young Duke Lacrini had just taken over the family. His head was completely consumed by the family's brutal survival, until a certain woman walked into his life. Unlike all the snobby nobles, she didn't show a single ounce of fear or respect for the Grand Duke of the North standing right in front of her. She even boldly declared that she would make this cold man fall madly in love with her, in just 3 days. She was the Duke's wife, Lilsa's grandmother. She was a truly sincere and straightforward woman. But the strange thing was, the Duke, who had always put his family first, from that moment on, his eyes just couldn't help but follow her, even though he never explicitly showed his love. Soon, when winter arrived, the Duchess was already pregnant with Fennel. But right then, the Duke had to embark on a long, grueling expedition. Endless waves of monsters were recklessly attacking the borders. Until he finally received the news that the Duchess was critically ill. That was the very first time he abandoned his duties, just so he could be a good husband. Looking right at the man she loved so deeply, the woman's eyes filled with tears of joy. And then, she closed her eyes forever, leaving young Fennel in the care of her husband. But the price for the Duke abandoning his post was absolutely devastating. The knights, having lost their commander, had their defense lines completely overrun by monsters, causing massive casualties. Even though he was utterly devastated, he decided, from that moment on, never to be swayed by his emotions again. And his one and only exception was on the day Lilsa was born. He never regretted making that choice. He just secretly promised himself there would never be a second time. Just then, a sudden knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Lilsa actually rushed in, hugging a magic book. Inside were the strict rules of the Lacrani family. Only those who completely master their own power are allowed to leave the territory. Duke Lacrani was completely non-committal about this rule. Lilsa held up 3 fingers. She was going to master her magic in 3 days. Sensing the girl's desperate urge to go to the capital, the Duke actually agreed to her request. But, if she failed, she would have to stay quietly in the territory until she came of age. No one could believe it. The supposedly useless young lady's very first awakening actually turned her into a soulless bubble machine. After making that 3-day promise with the Duke, Lilsa immediately turned to Sona, wanting to ask for a fast track to mastering her magic. But then she suddenly remembered, she had never actually seen Sona use magic before. The very next second, Sona completely transformed into Roland's appearance. It turned out that when Sona was little, she was quite the prankster, always giving her friends a good scare. Who would have thought that Sona, who looked like a literal angel to Lilsa, actually had such a mischievous side? The awakening of magic usually comes with a very strong desire. Hearing this, Lilsa froze completely. Wait, was her deepest desire really just to blow bubbles? In the blink of an eye, Lilsa went to find Lisker. But as a direct descendant, he had awakened right at birth. He completely skipped the working hard to awaken phase. And right now, Lilsa couldn't feel the magic inside her body at all. Upon learning that his sister's awakening was entirely to protect their second brother from monster attacks, Lisker got a very thoughtful look on his face. He told Lilsa to close her eyes. The very next second, a giant monster doll popped out of nowhere, scaring the absolute living daylights out of Lilsa. The magic she expected in her hands didn't appear at all. Instead, she was so terrified she started hiccuping non-stop. Seeing this, Lisker instantly gave up on the whole idea of helping his little sister awaken. Watching Lilsa hiccuping uncontrollably, a thought even crossed his mind, that his little sister might just be a total idiot. A little while later, Lilsa was practicing her magic all by herself, but the bubbles just wouldn't come out. Not long ago, Roland's advice was for Lilsa to read a magic book that was literally taller than a person. But Oberon made Lilsa too scared to even get close. Was she really exactly what Lisker had called her, just an idiot? But right then, Lilsa suddenly threw her head up and spotted a very familiar silhouette. Ricardo actually showed up right at this moment. Watching secretly from the shadows, he actually thought his sister's hiccuping was her sighing. He gently placed Lilsa's hands into his own palms, guiding his little sister to truly feel the magic, like the sweet fragrance of flowers when spring finally arrives. As her hair fluttered in the breeze, it was clear that magic had always lingered around the Lacrani family. Closing her eyes, Lilsa could actually feel the magic flowing quietly through her veins. She reached out her hand instinctively. The very next moment, magical bubbles drifted and filled the entire manor. The light refracted beautifully through them, leaving everyone staring in absolute disbelief. Meanwhile, having poured out all her magic at once, Lilsa suddenly felt weak and exhausted. Ricardo's pupils shrank uncontrollably. These massive bubbles were actually big enough to envelop the entire manor. It turns out that behind Lilsa's destiny, behind her destiny, yes, behind Lilsa's destiny, lay the unspoken hopes of everyone. As the long-dormant magic bloomed from the little girl's hands, an anxious voice called out. The Duke had finally found the two of them. He gently grabbed Lilsa's shoulders. Sensing the sudden surge of magic, his very first concern was whether she was feeling unwell. It was the very first time she had ever seen her grandfather look so panicked. The Duke of Lacrani was both amazed and worried, seeing his sweet granddaughter reach out her little arms for a hug. His heart ached uncontrollably. "My darling, are you watching? This child, she reminds me of you again." Lilsa's genuine warmth and resilience, just like the late Duchess, were melting away the ice that had slowly wrapped around his heart. Meanwhile, Oberon stood before one of the giant bubbles and gently poked it. The magic radiating from it actually had the power of conversion. The ability Lady Lursa had shown before was to nullify all magic, but this time, it was converting it. It was impossible for one person to possess two distinct magical traits. His gaze deepened as he looked at the little girl. Could Lady Lursa be a dual ability user? The kind that hasn't been seen in centuries? In the blink of an eye, the day came for Lursa to set off for the capital. Upset about his sister's departure, Lisker looked quite gloomy. But the next second, someone pinched his ear. You need to say a proper goodbye to your little sister. The Duke patiently reminded Lursa. Whatever you do, don't let anyone lure you away with snacks. And never let go of your father's hand. Oh, and if a mosquito bites you, order the knights to destroy it immediately. It took him ages to reluctantly let go of his grandbaby's hand. After Lursa promised to bring back gifts for every single one of them, she finally set off for the capital. The streets of the royal capital were incredibly bustling. Kids were running around freely, and crowds of people were busy shopping. The sights made Lursa bubble with excitement. Fennel gently helped his daughter step down from the carriage. She really wanted to buy gifts for Sona and the others, but Lursa suddenly realized a big problem. She didn't have a single penny on her. Little did she know, as the precious daughter of the Lacrani family, her father Fennel could effortlessly buy out the entire street if he wanted to. Soon, they arrived at a fancy gift shop. From handmade trinkets to magical gadgets, Lursa was completely dazzled by all the choices. Thanks to her incredibly cute looks, the shop clerk eagerly recommended the perfect item, a magical music box that was all the rage in the capital. Every single box held a different story inside. Watching a tiny hero defeat a dragon to save the princess, Lursa struggled to decide which one to get. Seeing his daughter's hesitation, Fennel simply waved his hand and ordered them to pack up the entire store. Hearing this, the clerk instantly pictured a very wealthy retirement. Looking at the mountains of gift boxes, Lursa finally beamed with a satisfied smile. Everyone's gifts were sorted out, but then, she started wondering where they were going to stay. Usually, dukes had their own grand estates in the capital. However, this time, the father and daughter were staying as someone's guests. Just thinking about it made Fennel's face twitch in annoyance. He's such an obnoxious guy. Meanwhile, the red-haired duke, in a desperate bid to get Fenner to stay at his mansion, even threatened him, saying that if he refused, he would throw a massive, 3-day and 3-night party right outside Fenner's front door. The very second Fenner laid eyes on the redhead, he gently, but firmly, hurled a teacup straight at his face. And just like that, his absolute best frenemy had completely become the white-haired man's embarrassing dark history. The carriage came to a smooth halt in front of the lavish estate. Seeing Fenner arriving with his daughter, Duke Kaysen Marcella greeted them with booming enthusiasm. The very first time he laid eyes on Rilsha, the image of this absolutely adorable little creature completely melted his heart. Thank goodness she looked absolutely nothing like Fenner. The empire is supported by 4 great noble pillars: the Hanal family, masters of alchemy and potions; the Williams family, profound scholars of philosophy; the Marcella family, a distinguished lineage of artists; and the Lacreni family, unmatched in the art of war. Standing before them, the young Kaysen began to introduce himself, boasting that he was Fenner's absolute best friend back in their academy days. With that, he ordered the maids to take Rilsha to the absolute best room in the estate, saying he and Fenner needed to have a little grown-up chat. Hearing this, Rilsha politely excused herself, but the exact moment he heard the sweet little girl call him uncle, Kaysen instantly lost his composure. That sudden, massive jump in seniority caught him completely off guard. A few moments later, Kaysen had some tea specially prepared for Fenner, and couldn't resist mercilessly teasing him. He joked about how Fenner, even before his daughter was born, was already agonizing over her growing up and getting married. Crying his eyes out to Kaysen every single night, having his embarrassing past totally exposed, Fenner instantly fired another teacup right at his face. As for the investigation Fenner had asked him to handle, there were finally some real results. Ever since Li Jin became the Crown Prince's swordsmanship instructor, he had unfortunately been reduced to nothing but a punching bag for the mother and son duo. Kaysen's hidden informants originally wanted to bring him back to his family estate, but they received a heartbreakingly unexpected answer: I would only become a burden to the family. Faced with Li Jin's stubborn refusal, faced with his absolute rejection, Kaysen was completely powerless to intervene. Regarding this matter, Fenner, however, didn't want to meddle too much in his eldest son's decisions. As for the second matter, the rumors about the emperor's illegitimate child have been absolutely confirmed as true. The boy's mother was a maid to the emperor, but she mysteriously vanished a few years ago. It is highly likely that she is being hidden away by the empress's Hanal family. When it came to how to handle this child, Fenner decided it was best to just observe quietly from the shadows for now, to see if this boy would end up sparking a massive rebellion throughout the empire. Meanwhile, the empress had already returned to her family estate. Duke Fane Hanal shot a cold, indifferent glance at his daughter. "Tomorrow is Adrian's coronation ceremony," stated Kara Hanal, the empress of the Clare Empire. She wanted to check on the progress of that specific matter. Hearing this, Duke Fane replied that he originally wanted to just let the brat starve to death, but decided they had better keep him alive, just in case. "It won't be long now," he muttered. "Our Hanal family will soon become the true rulers of the Clare Empire." Meanwhile, pale moonlight spilled through the tiny, barred window. The boy sat huddled deep inside the damp dungeon. After 3 agonizing days, a maid finally brought him some food, only to carelessly toss it onto the filthy floor. The boy was already completely numb to this kind of cruel treatment. He carefully gathered up the meager scraps of food. Even though he was desperately starving, he still broke off half of it to share with a little fox named Cece. Watching the little fox devour the food ravenously, he wondered just how long it would be until their next meal. Or perhaps, they would never get one again. On the other hand, the grand, dressed-up arrival of the father and daughter duo. Yes, their dazzling, show-stopping appearance completely eclipsed the crown prince, leaving him standing there like a totally ignored nobody. Yet, right at that moment, Crown Prince Adrian, upon finding out that Fenner was coming to attend his coronation, was so incredibly thrilled he practically danced for joy. In his eyes, this was a massive deal. It symbolized the absolute backing of the mighty Lacreni family. He couldn't wait a second longer and immediately ran to find his mother, desperately craving a rewarding hug from her. Even though it's his birthday today, he was still harshly rejected by the empress. Becoming the crown prince means he has to grow up fast. He inherited his father's striking blue eyes, so naturally, he's expected to be the pride of the royal family. Meanwhile, a carriage was rushing to the grand banquet. It was only then that little Lursa learned the defining traits of the royal bloodline: bright blonde hair and deep blue eyes. But Duke Fenner gently warned his daughter. The emperor won't be attending today, because the spotlight is entirely on the crown prince's coronation. But for the little girl, this banquet was far more than just a simple ceremony. That woman trailing right behind the crown prince, sticking to him like glue, is the empress. And standing right by her side, is Lursa's eldest brother, Rishan. In her past life, Lursa had never even met her older brother. The two of them were always kept completely isolated from each other. Would he be able to return to their family this time? Fenner's warm hand gently brushed the top of his daughter's head, soothing Lursa's anxious little heart. "Don't worry, Daddy will take care of everything." Thinking about the tragic future that only she knew, her father's strong embrace gave Lursa such a deep sense of safety, that she drifted right to sleep. Looking down at his sleeping daughter, the Duke decided it was best not to tell her too much. After all, Lursa was still so very young. In the blink of an eye, they arrived. The Duke hadn't made a public appearance in a very long time. Meanwhile, Rishan listened quietly, as the crowd began to gossip about the youngest daughter of the Lachlan family. "Maybe there's something wrong with that child's bloodline," they whispered, but the moment Fenner stepped into the banquet hall carrying his daughter, the entire room fell dead silent. All those nasty rumors about her impure bloodline instantly shattered, the second they saw the brilliant color of Lursa's eyes. Seeing his little girl wake up, Fenner's usually ice-cold face broke into a rare, gentle smile. To the watching nobles, this was practically a miracle. Duke Kassan then walked over to greet them. Lursa rubbed her puffy, sleep-filled eyes, feeling completely overwhelmed by the massive crowd. The three of them instantly became the center of attention. Kassan playfully teased Lil Lursa. "The adult world is a very dangerous place, little one. Be careful, or the monsters might swallow you whole." Hearing this, Lursa firmly decided to stay on high alert. But the very next second, someone pinched her chubby cheek. Lursa doesn't need to worry about a thing, her father assured her. The Lachlan family isn't someone you want to mess with. And as for the star of tonight's banquet? Kassan scoffed. "He's just a lucky little clown." Right as he said that, Fenner's sharp gaze locked onto the grand entrance. The Empress and the Crown Prince had finally arrived. It was said that when the goddess's blessing descended upon the world, the true chosen one had everything stolen by the Crown Prince. Crown Prince Adrian was completely mediocre. He only became the heir because he had absolutely no competition. And deep down, the Empress knew this perfectly well. That was exactly why she locked the real chosen boy in a dark, suffocating dungeon. She was determined to pave the way for Adrian and ruthlessly monitor any noble family that could threaten the throne. Naturally, that included the Lachlan family. The Empress shot a cold, dismissive glare at Fenner. Without breaking her stride, she marched straight ahead, making it crystal clear to everyone in the room. The Lachlan family meant absolutely nothing to her. As the Empress took her place at the high throne, the grand coronation banquet for the Crown Prince officially began. But the moment it started, the nobles completely swarmed around little Lursa instead. She braced herself, thinking these were the scary adults Cassin had warned her about. But to her surprise, in the eyes of the crowd, Lursa looked like a delicate, flawless little porcelain doll. Watching all this from afar, Adrian ground his teeth in absolute fury. It was supposed to be his grand coronation, but this random girl was stealing all of his thunder. The Empress watched the whole scene unfold with cold, calculating eyes. She leaned in and whispered to Adrian, "Just invite that little girl for a dance. Do that, and everyone's eyes will be right back on you." And so, in the very next moment, Adrian swaggered over with an incredibly arrogant smirk. He appeared right in front of Lursa, tightly grabbing her hand in a flash. His grip was so brutally strong, she couldn't break free at all. But the Crown Prince's disrespectful hand was violently yanked away by a man. Li Jin's sudden appearance made the Crown Prince almost completely lose his mind. A vicious, cold glare flashed in the Empress's eyes. But since there were too many nobles watching, she dragged Li Jin off towards the side hall instead. Watching her brother obediently walk away, Lursa couldn't understand what her brother was going through at all. As the heavy doors shut tight, a sharp, echoing slap rang out in the side hall. For a dog that dares to bite its master, the royal family has never shown any mercy. The Crown Prince even sneered. He bluntly declared that even if Lursa awakened her powers, she would still be nothing but a useless piece of trash. Hearing that, Li Jin instantly dropped his obedient act. "Those kinds of words, Your Highness better take them back." Hearing this, the Crown Prince exploded in rage, instantly kicking out, landing a vicious kick right on Li Jin's chest. "Taking you in all those years ago. You should be crying tears of gratitude." Just then, the Empress pulled Adrian back, warning Li Jin to remember his pathetic place. How absolutely absurd. A sudden voice cutting from behind made the Empress's face completely freeze. Fenner had actually shown up at this exact moment. Lursa rushed forward to check on her brother's injuries. Recovering from her brief panic, the Empress quickly claimed she was just giving Li Jin some appropriate discipline. After all, as the Crown Prince's swordmaster, he should obviously follow royal rules. Do you really think he can just sit securely on the throne? Seeing everything the poor boy was subjected to by the royal family with his own eyes, witnessing all the abuse. Seeing everything the boy suffered in the palace with his own eyes, Fenner couldn't hold back his fury any longer. Do you seriously think you can sit safely on that throne? Do you really think you're untouchable? But the Empress just sneered with utter contempt. Well, it seems Li Jin's manners are all thanks to you, Fenner. If that's the case, then why don't you go have a nice little chat with the boy? The Empress dismissed Li Jin, but right before they left, she shot Lursa a piercing look. Your hair color is absolutely stunning. So completely different from Lacreni's silver. It is exactly the same as your mother's. The young girl froze in shock. The Empress actually knew her mother? A little while later, now that Lursa had awakened her powers, Li Jin was finally free to return to their family. But he completely refused the chance. All because Fenner had begged him before heading to the border to always protect his younger siblings. He had fiercely held onto that heavy responsibility all this time. With the royal family being so overwhelmingly powerful, he knew staying behind was the only way to protect his family. The royals possessed an absolute, God-given power from birth. Legend has it that God gifted 4 mighty powers to humanity, birthing the 4 great noble families. But that only plunged the world into endless, bloody wars. So, God bestowed a 5th, supreme power upon the royal family to maintain ultimate balance and order in the world. But then, an oracle descended exactly 8 years ago. The goddess has sent her child to the mortal realm, to return everything to its rightful place. And the crown prince was the very child born of that prophecy. To prevent the empress from slaughtering them all once his divine powers awakened, Li Jin was willing to trap himself in the palace forever, serving as the ultimate shield for his family. Under the pale moonlight, father and daughter sat in the carriage heading home, completely lost in silence. This was the exact nightmare Lursa never wanted to see. Seeing her distress, Fenner softly spoke up to comfort her. He made a heartfelt promise to his daughter. When summer comes, our whole family will be together to celebrate your birthday. He swore to keep that promise, even if it cost him his life. But that wasn't what was terrifying Lursa at all. She just desperately needed to know what really drove their family to such a desperate point. Whether it's the royal family or Li Jin, there are just too many problems left to solve. But right now, she is still far too weak. After returning to the castle, Fenol gently coaxed Lursa to sleep. But as the night grew darker, a soft call suddenly jolted the girl awake from her dreams. Lursa groggily rubbed her eyes, only to find the room completely empty. She thought she must have misheard it. "Please, help him," the pleading voice echoed from right outside the castle. Remembering her grandfather's strict warnings, she knew she couldn't just go off with strangers. But the very next second, she wrapped a blanket tightly around herself. Going out for just a bit should be fine. A few hours earlier, at the Shinel estate, a young boy was huddled deep inside the dungeon. He could hear the guards outside chatting about the crown prince's birthday today. The boy's eyes dimmed with sadness. His own birthday was just yesterday. Yet here he was, locked away in this dark, miserable cell. Just then, a little fox named Cece trotted over, carrying a shiny key in its mouth. It dropped the key onto the floor and excitedly wagged its tail. Staring at the key in his hand, and thinking back to what the guards had just said. Everyone had gone to the crown prince's banquet. This was his one and only chance to escape. The little blonde puppy the girl had casually saved turned out to be the prince who had been imprisoned for years. The soft, desperate calling from earlier had woken Lursa from her sleep. Her grandfather's advice ultimately couldn't hold back her burning curiosity. The night market was dead silent and completely empty. But right around the corner, a little yellow figure crashed right into her. The baby fox seemed absolutely thrilled to see the girl. The little fox wiggled happily in midair, while an anxious voice suddenly rang out beside her. The moment their eyes met, both of them froze in surprise. The boy quickly apologized for the little fox bumping into her, and just as he reached out to take it back, the baby fox started showering Lursa's cheeks with sweet kisses. Normally, little Cece absolutely hated strangers getting close. But right now, it was showing her so much affection. Lursa warmly introduced herself as the lady of the Lacreni family. The boy quietly shared his name too. He called himself Ash, a person with no last name. But those radiant golden locks and striking blue eyes made Lursa instantly recognize his royal bloodline. Hearing her realize this, Ash's entire body violently stiffened. Seeing his reaction, Lursa suddenly felt a strange, lingering sense of familiarity from him. She slowly stepped closer, gently assuring him she meant no harm. But Ash turned and bolted without looking back, leaving Lursa standing there completely stunned. Meanwhile, Duke Shinel exploded in a violent fit of rage after finding out the boy had escaped. With all the nobles currently gathered in the capital, he couldn't even fathom the catastrophic consequences if the boy's true identity was exposed. He immediately ordered his men to tear the city apart and find him, no matter what. As the night deepened, realizing he had finally shaken the girl off, Ash let out a heavy breath of relief. He just didn't want to drag an innocent lady into his messy, dangerous world. But right at that moment, the tracking knights finally spotted him. He absolutely refused to go back to that pitch-black, suffocating dungeon. So, he ran forward as if his very life depended on it. It wasn't until then that he realized he had run straight into a dead end at the edge of a cliff. The knights behind him quickly closed in, surrounding him completely. Pure terror threatened to swallow him whole. His body instinctively backed away, taking 2 shaky steps in retreat. But his foot met empty air, and just like that, he plummeted into the abyss. The Duke's strict orders were to capture Ash alive. Seeing him fall, the knights went into an absolute panic. Feeling his body freely falling through the air, Ash actually thought, this is fine. He was so sick and tired of this miserable, bleak life, forever buried in damp shadows anyway. The only regret was that Cece would have to die right here with him. But on the bright side, they wouldn't have to run anymore. They wouldn't have to be afraid, and they'd never get hurt again. But right at that moment, millions of bubbles suddenly lit up the entire sky. The knights who touched the bubbles instantly fell into a deep sleep. The boy stared in absolute disbelief. A giant bubble wrapped completely around him and Cece. As his vision slowly focused, he saw a girl draped in a bedsheet standing by the cliff, her pink hair fluttering in the wind. "I finally found you, Ash." The girl's magical bubbles lit up Ash's dark and hopeless life. The knight's relentless search had forced the boy to ultimately fall off the cliff. Just as Ash was ready to end his miserable life, an endless stream of bubbles suddenly rose into the sky. They wrapped around the boy and the little fox cub, floating them safely back to the edge. Watching the knights collapse all around them, the boy finally realized that Lursa had come to save him. This was the very first time he had seen bubble magic in action. This tragic fate was supposed to be his alone to bear. But now, he had dragged this girl into his mess. About this, Lursa finally explained why she wanted to help Ash. Looking deep into the boy's eyes, she saw the exact same loneliness and fear that she used to feel. "I heard that a friend is someone you can lean on when you're running away. So, I really want to be your friend, Ash. And that includes this little fox cub, too." Seeing Lursa hold out her pinky finger to make a promise, the boy just froze for a second. Then, he hooked his pinky around hers without a second thought. Childhood friendship is just so simple and pure. But right at that moment, Ash's stomach gave an embarrassingly loud rumble. After running for so long, he was honestly starving. Hearing that, Lursa almost burst out laughing. A little while later, looking at the table completely packed with a massive feast, Lursa told him that if it wasn't enough, she could go grab some more. The boy was still feeling a bit shy, but Cece just chomped straight into a rib. The polite manners Ash tried so hard to keep were instantly ruined by the little fox. Lursa brought Ash a slice of strawberry cake. Ash had never seen food like this before in his life. Just one tiny bite, and that sweet, delicious flavor instantly blew his mind. The very next second, he started scarfing it down. Seeing him so completely starved just made Lursa even more confused. Blonde hair and blue eyes were undoubtedly the mark of royal blood, but she had never heard anything about the crown prince having a brother. But Ash really didn't want to talk about it, even though they had only just met. Looking into Lursa's sincere eyes gave him a sense of peace he had never felt before. Those were knights from the Siner family, the family of the Empress's father. He had grown up with his mother in the slums since he was a baby. Until one day, his mother vanished without a trace, and the Empress adopted him instead. She claimed she would give the boy a much better life. Little did he know, it was all a giant, twisted lie. From that day on, he was locked away in a dark dungeon, never to see the outside world again. Cece was his only friend during all that suffering. He risked absolutely everything just to escape. Hearing all this, Lursa finally realized just how much danger Ash would be in if he got caught. She quickly told him to just hide here for now. After all, her father and grandpa were incredibly strong. They could absolutely keep this place safe. By the time the warm morning sunlight poured down, the two of them had just fallen asleep right there on the floor. Hearing a knock on the door, Lursa groggily forced her eyes open. Then it suddenly hit her. She hadn't even had the chance to tell her dad about any of this. So she frantically shook Ash awake. Hearing the shuffling noises inside, Fennel started knocking even harder. But when nobody answered, he just opened the door himself. Oh no, I am so dead. Just like that, the little blonde stray puppy the girl brought home was discovered by Fennel. Just a few moments ago, listening to all the weird noises coming from Lursa's room. Orange, Fenner eagerly pushed the door open, only to find his little girl standing frozen in front of her wardrobe. Orange see manga. Fenner looked confused at first, but then something clicked in his head. Orange see manga. The parenting guide Roland gave him mentioned this exact situation. She must have brought home a stray kitten or puppy. Hearing Lursa claim she was just organizing her closet, Fenner couldn't hold back his excitement. Orange see manga. He wanted to see what kind of little critter she was hiding. Orange see manga. But the moment he swung the cabinet doors open, Fenner completely froze. A young boy was curled up right there inside the wardrobe. Seeing this, Lursa felt like the sky was falling. She scrambled to explain that he was just a new friend she'd made. He really had nowhere else to go, so she begged to bring him back to the castle. Orange see manga. But the very next second, Orange Sea Manga. Ash stepped in front of Lursa, shielding her. Orange Sea Manga. He didn't want to put the girl in a tough spot. Orange Sea Manga. So, even if it meant getting kicked out, he was ready to face all the consequences on his own. Watching this, Fenner could only think about how the surprises just kept coming ever since he got home. For a moment, he could hardly believe it. The hidden child of the Signer family would actually show up right in front of him like this. Orange Sea Manga. Seeing the boy's bravery, Fenner looked down. Orange Sea Manga, and warmly ruffled his daughter's hair. You really brought home a fierce little lion, didn't you? The next moment, he introduced himself to Ash. He is Fenner, from the Lacreni family, and he had been searching for Ash all along. A little while later, looking at the two kids who stayed completely silent, Lursa hung her head low, while Cece had already hidden away in the corner. It wasn't until then that Duke Cassin finally snapped to his senses. The boy Lursa had brought home was actually the Emperor's illegitimate son, truly worthy of being the young lady of the Lacreni family. Her guts are as massive as ever. This child standing before them is enough to change everything in the Empire. And Ash is also painfully aware of who he is. Orange Sea Manga. If the Empress catches him, the only thing waiting for him will undoubtedly be a tragic end. Orange Sea Manga. Fenner spoke up. Orange Sea Manga. He needs Ash's royal bloodline. In exchange, the Lacreni family will protect Ash until he grows strong enough to stand on his own. Orange Sea Manga. The Lacreni family has been loyal to the royal family for ages. Orange Sea Manga. But the royals have never stopped trying to swallow the Lacrenis whole. Orange Sea Manga. Simply because the Lacrenis possess an overwhelming, innate power. So, as long as Ash takes their side, Orange Sea Manga, the imperial power will be split. Orange Sea Manga. And only then can they rescue Lursa's older brother. Orange Sea Manga. Hearing this, Lursa finally realized just how serious the situation was. But she didn't want to sway Ash's choice. If he didn't want to do it, he shouldn't force himself. She just wanted the boy to make a decision based on his own free will. No matter what, they would find a way to save her brother. Seeing her sincerity, Ash made up his mind right then and there. He wanted to help Lursa, and he was completely sick of living a life on the run. Orange Sea Manga. He is willing to join the Lacrenis. Hearing his resolve, Fenner also gave his word. He will protect Ash with everything he has, right up until the boy ascends to the Crown Prince's throne. Right then, Duke Cassin leaned in and gently asked Ash how old he was. Hearing this, Ash froze a bit. The Empress had once warned him that no matter who asked, he had to pretend to be older than the Crown Prince. But even so, Orange Sea Manga. Cassin instantly figured out Ash's true identity. He is the true child sent down by the goddess. This boy's arrival, Orange Sea Manga, felt like he could snatch Lursa away at any moment. This made Fenner experience the classic protective old dad crisis way ahead of time. Not long ago, the little blonde puppy's identity was finally revealed. It turns out, he is the true child blessed by the goddess. Fenner decided to let Duke Cassin look after the boy for now. He needs to take Lursa back to their territory first. Right now, the capital is crawling with guards searching everywhere. They can only rely on the Lacreni family's massive wealth and influence to head back and arrange a wyvern to fly Ash out of there. Orange Sea Manga. Seeing everyone worrying so much about him, Eshi briefly felt the warmth of a home. Fenner then stood up, ordering the staff to prepare dinner, since he would be taking Lursa back home the very next day. A brief moment later, Lursa walked in, hugging a sketchbook. Inside its pages were things Eshi had never even imagined. The outside world. It was just a shame that the day would soon be over. As night fell, Eshi lay quietly in the hidden bedroom that Cassin had arranged for him. Faced with the two nobles who had suddenly appeared in his life, Eshi felt completely lost about what his future held. Orange Sea Comics notes, if only Cece were here. But just then, a soft glow of light peeked through the door. To his surprise, Lursa appeared at the doorway, hugging a little pillow. He was the very first friend the girl had made across both of her lifetimes. Because of that, she deeply treasured every second she spent with Eshi. The mere thought that they would have to part ways the moment they woke up made Lursa force her eyes wide open, fighting off sleep. Duke Signer had once promised that he would give Eshi a real home, but in the end, it was nothing but a cruel lie. Orange Sea Comics notes that in this quiet moment, Lursa could clearly sense the boy's deep vulnerability. They were officially friends now. That meant there would finally be someone in this world who would constantly worry about whether he had a good day, and as the recap says, whether he was eating and sleeping properly. Promise me, you won't ever be afraid again. Those sweet words from Lursa became the light that Eshi finally saw in his dark life. Meanwhile, Fenner was standing right outside the bedroom door. Orange Sea Comics points out that the two kids had been hanging out for way too long. It honestly made Fenner feel a little bit jealous. Besides his fear of his daughter getting hurt in the brutal fight for the throne, the channel jokes that Fenner was clearly terrified of his little girl being snatched away by this blonde kid. On the other side of things, Duke Siner couldn't hide his sheer panic any longer. Looking deathly pale, he rushed to find the queen. Eshi had been on the run for quite a while now. Orange Sea notes that the guards sent to track him down were all found unconscious on the ground. There wasn't even the slightest trace of a struggle at the scene. The channel adds, thinking about who in the Empire possessed that kind of terrifying power, Duke Siner's suspicions quickly locked onto the Lacreni family. Hearing this, the queen nervously gnawed on her nails. She still desperately needed the boy's blood to save Adrian, but looking at how things were spiraling right now, once the boy's true identity gets exposed, every single one of them is going to be completely ruined.